Hello, friends. I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. And I'm old. I think we can admit that I am, I'm older now than I was. I'm older than I was last week, older than I was yesterday, whatever. But I'm, mid 40s now. And one of the things, how did these fall down? I've told my kids many times that maybe I put that down so it wouldn't be on video. Whatever. My brain today. I've been very distractible for like a week now. I told my kids many times. In fact, they mock me for it now because I forget that I told them that one of my biggest fears is becoming that old guy who only knows who just stopped at some point in time and is just a frozen snapshot of that point in time. I could say my father's a little bit that way. He definitely doesn't like anything new, and that's okay. Um, but I don't want to be that guy. I've never wanted to be that guy. So my tastes have changed a lot throughout my life. There have been through lines, and there probably will always be those through lines, but I try really hard to be current-ish. Current-ish to a certain degree. There are things that I'm just not going to. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not going to be on TikTok. I have zero interest in it. I don't. I don't think that for my personality type and my uh, the way that my brain works, that short form content is good for me. I don't think it's healthy for me. I think that uh, it's very easy for me to get sucked into it, and I find myself wanting to be away from it as far as possible to prevent that from happening. So there's things like that that I'll never be a part of. But I try to keep current-ish, or at least be open to the changing tastes in my life, you know? I've been a fan of Pearl Jam since 94, 95, something like that. I think it was after No Code, whenever that was. Maybe it was before that. I don't really know. I mean, I definitely listened to 10, and I liked a lot of the songs on 10. And Versus had a couple of songs that were okay, and Vitology was eh. No Code was when I definitely like fell in love with that band, and I've listened to them now for 30 years, you know? Um, but I haven't listened to them actively in at least a year. Went on this cruise last year with Flogging Molly, who I've been listening to Flogging Molly religiously for 22 years now. Um, Went on a cruise last year to see them. Ended up seeing a whole bunch of bands that I had never heard of uh, that were punk and punk adjacent, and I fell in love with all of that. Now, I've always been like a casual fan of punk. Like, I enjoy harder, faster, kind of in your face music, but I never really, like, I didn't seek out, the punk bands of the 80s that were huge. And now I find myself listening to those bands. I'm listening to Pennywise. I'm listening to NoFX. I'm listening to um, The Descendants. And, well, they're not that old, but whatever. X. I'm listening to a lot of that genre of music because mainly because I've been using YouTube Music, whatever, Google, whatever. And I just, because of last year, we were trying to listen to some of the bands before going on the boat so we could figure out who we wanted to go see. I started listening to some of that stuff, and then now I'm just been letting YouTube suggest stuff to me, and I've been discovering all these bands that I knew about. I've known about, Authority Zero. I've known about Social Distortion. I've known about Rancid, and I've listened to some of their songs, and I've enjoyed some of their songs, but I've never really listened to them. And lately, I've been finding myself really enjoying that stuff. And I've found that there's a lot of stuff in my back catalog, especially musically, that I just don't really listen to anymore, but I find nostalgia for it. Dave Matthews Band would be one of those. I fell in love with Dave Matthews Band because of Carter Beauford, who was their drummer when I was a drummer. Like as a teenager, I was like, that guy is phenomenal. And so I listened to a lot of Dave Matthews Band, and I still love Dave Matthews Band. I don't ever listen to Dave Matthews Band. Every now and then I'll hear a song and I'm like, oh man, I love that record. I have to go listen to it, but I don't. And I guess the point is, staying current is actually, in today's world, I find it to be a little bit difficult. You know, when I was a kid, so here we go, old man. When, you know, in the 80s and 90s, when we wanted to discover something new, we had VH1, MTV, and the radio. And that was really it. If you were lucky, you had a friend in my area. So in this area where I live in upstate, north central West Virginia, there is no music scene at all. There's nothing here. And there hasn't been forever. And so the only way you could discover new stuff here was through national broadcast like MTV, whatever, or radio, or you happen to have a friend who somehow had a through line to some sort of obscure music scene and would share tapes, you know. I had a friend who would go to New York every now and then because he had family there, and he would bring back music from New York that we just didn't hear of here. Thankfully, we did have the university radio station U102 in Morgantown. You can kind of pick it up in some areas of down here. That they played a whole lot of new stuff, right? So there was ways to. The only way you discovered it was those methods. And now I don't know that I could discover anything through those methods. The only way I can discover things is through an app like Spotify or YouTube Music, or I can just try searching on Google, or I can go to Bandcamp. How do you find new music? I don't know. I just stumble into it. Years ago, there was that Kia commercial with this really awesome track. And I learned of this group called Louis the Child, and I fell in love with Louis the Child because of that Kia commercial. You know, it was just like I fumbled into it. Many years ago, like the early seasons of The Walking Dead, I heard this guy came on Talking Dead after the show. I'd never heard of him before, called Kid Cudi, and I started listening to his music, and I absolutely loved it. You know, when I was a kayaker, I bought kayaking videos, and I would find new music through kayaking videos because kayaking, like whitewater kayaking stuff, is basically a music video, and they would just play all this obscure music. And so I found like the Nappy Roots that way, and I found a whole bunch of singer-songwriter type stuff like John Elliott, and whatever. I happened to watch Letterman one night and saw Bon Iver. I don't know how you say his name. So I just stumble into new music. And I think maybe going on this cruise last year helped me stumble back into a genre of music that I definitely listened to as a kid. Whenever it was out on radio, I would listen to punk as much as I could. I was a skateboarder, so I would watch bootleg skateboard videos that have a whole lot of punk music, and I liked it, but I didn't have a path or a means to see punk. I wasn't in California or New York, and I didn't have money to go to a record store. We didn't have record stores in this area. So it's been really interesting to sit back and think about it. And I don't know why I was thinking about it this weekend. I was thinking about my changing taste. Like we're going to go see the Interrupters and Frank Turner at the start of the month next month. And I haven't seen Pearl Jam now in probably 5 years. I don't remember when the last time they toured and I actually got to see them. But it definitely hasn't. It's been since before M's been around. I haven't seen them since M's been a part of my life. And that's weird because there was years that I would see them 2 or 3 times a year. And now I haven't seen them in 5 years, and I'm listening to more obscure music that really speaks to me. I hope I can continue keeping that sort of open mind all throughout my life. I don't ever want to be stuck and frozen in place and say, no, this is it. This is what I'm going to listen to for the rest of my life, or this is going to be the hobby that I have for the rest of my life, or whatever. It's a tall order, though, right? There is a lot of new stuff that I like hip hop, I like rap, but that mumbles, that whole scene, God, that was terrible. That was horrific. But that's no reason to turn off to the entire genre of music, right? What do you think? Do you keep up with the current trends? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is qualm. It is a noun meaning a sudden feeling of uneasiness, often linked to a pang in one's conscience. Of course, we felt no qualms about wanting the finest things in life that is the legacy our forefathers happened or bequeathed to us. Qualm. Qualm. I didn't really know it was a feeling of uneasiness or a conscience thing. I just thought it was like I didn't have a problem with it. I guess that's the same thing, but I didn't know it had a feeling attached.